first half when you're doing that is atrocious. It's miserable to watch that.
It was miserable to watch. That was one thing I agree.
It was, and that's not the soundbite or two of them that's getting played the most in America.
Right.
But that's his opening statement, the first thing he says in the news conference, and there was an I and a we, and the guys played hard in there. You're not hearing a lot of that today. I'm not here to play the hill today. I'm not here to be the villain and say things that you don't want to hear, but let's give the full story. He did say that to start off the news conference. I'm Hugh Freeze doesn't even know my name probably. I'm just sitting here saying that, and we all know I grew up an Alabama fan. I'm just saying he did say I and we and the guys played hard in the opening statement.
I told you guys last week and on the pregame that if Auburn loses this game, I could see the fan base flip on Hugh.
Oh, you did say that, yes.
And
I saw some of that over the weekend.
I saw on the Twitter over the weekend, it seems like the fan base, not all, but a lot, has flipped on Hugh, and they don't like the fact of that one clip that was pulled that I know we're going to get to. But if I would have told you Taylor Green, 12 of 27 with 2 picks, and Jaquindon Jackson only averaged 3.4 a carry with only 75 total yards, and Auburn outgains the Hogs by almost 100 yards in Jordan-Hare, you would have thought they won the game. They lost by double digits.
Yeah. Let's go to cut 2, Tyler. I don't know if this is the one everyone's talking about. I mean, I hadn't thought of Bo Wallace. Was it good Bo or was it bad Bo Saturday night? I mean, that's all we used to hear in 2014.
Good Bo or bad Bo?
Kids back in the 20-teens, there was this guy named Bo Wallace at Ole Miss. Maybe some of your parents watched Bo Wallace back in the day, way back in 2014, but he was relevant over the weekend. So too was Ben Watson on the SEC Network, both going after Hugh for throwing players under the bus. Let's just listen to Hugh, and you make the call. It's the Alcoa. You make the call right here. Here's Hugh Freeze.
Hugh, offensively, when you start to look at the mistakes, those things, how do you balance, hey, this is what we do with, or maybe these guys can't execute what we're doing?
Unfortunately, this is what I know, and I know that there's people open, and I know that we're running the football. And we got to find a guy that won't throw it to the other team. And we got to find running backs that hold on to it. You know, that's a huge play there. I mean, we're going in to score. I don't know, what was it, 7-0 then? Or so it's 7-7, and our defense gets a stop, and who knows what happens. But, you know, the scheme is what most everybody in the country is running some sort of. But you've got to have good play at quarterback for sure at whatever system you're going to choose.
Okay, you guys make the call. Is that throwing people under the bus?
Well, he was asked directly about the question, and I said this last week. I don't believe now with NIL, I think you can be critical of your players. On the backside, he should say, with that said, I made the decision to have these quarterbacks as my quarterbacks in the quarterback room. Because he obviously did not get a guy in the portal. So I think you've got to at least own that. He was asked directly. I don't mind him being critical.
Yeah. I think if people want to play the press conference game here, and what should Hugh Freeze have said?
Oh, that's all everybody's playing.
I know, is people wanted to hear him say, now look, this is on me. I'm telling you what happened, but it's on me as the coach. You know, I put him in those positions, and I got to fix this. And there was none of that in that particular answer, no. There is nothing he said in that is wrong, though.
No.
You watched the game.
No, not at all. And, you know, talking to Taylor Korn, who obviously is a diehard Auburn fan, and I forgot to ask her about her weird wilderness picture, black and white, what she was doing there.
Oh, I missed that.
I didn't even see that one.
Just looking lost, her lost soul after Auburn takes on its second loss in September. But she said, you know, if people watched the entire press conference, she was in there. He said I 4 or 5 times. He takes responsibility. It was just that one standalone clip where obviously we love to take things out of context. But look, if you want to be critical on the players, I think you've got to accept responsibility with the money he's making and the fact those are his quarterbacks. But I don't have a problem with him being critical about you can't turn the football over 5 times.
Okay, now.
I will tell you, the weekends go way too quickly. Way too quickly. Friday night, you get live underdogs winning games. West Coast action that goes down to a final play. Saturday is just a blur. Sunday's a blur. And here we are on a Monday for Unlocked with the quarterback The man from Fox, Brock Huard, brought to you by mybookie.ag. Double that initial deposit. When you put in that code word next round, they'll double it right now. It's winning season, football season at mybookie.ag. Congratulations to your Seahawks. Big win at home.
You like that?
We will get to.
You like the sweatshirt?
I do. Again, yeah. I love the throwback uniforms a couple of weeks ago. We'll get to the NFL. I'm going to start college today because I don't know if you heard the clip where we were talking about the Hugh Freeze situation and what people are deeming him rolling his players under the bus. I said this last week. I've worked with a lot of guys that have really reserved themselves not being critical of college players because they were amateurs. But now that they're getting paid, I don't know if this goes for coaches, and I'm going to get your take on this because you played for a lot of different coaches, from your dad all the way to the highest level at the NFL. Hugh did take some accountability in that press conference. The one clip we're going to run with, of course, is the one where he says, I got to find a quarterback that doesn't throw it to the other team and a running back that's not going to drop it in the end zone. Talking about, obviously the fumble through the end zone with Damari Alston, which could have completely changed the outcome of that game. But first, the Auburn quarterback situation we know is not good. It wasn't good with Peyton Thorne. It's obviously not good with Hank Brown. The freshman has 3 picks this past week, gets pulled. Peyton Thorne's back in there. But just as a former player, to hear a coach go that route, do you have a problem with it?
Lance, pronouns matter. Okay, have you ever heard that? Pronouns matter.
I have, recently, especially, yes.
Yeah, especially out on the West Coast as well. It really, I won't name the coach, but it was really, I played with one coach in my entire tenure. And the challenge you had is when it went well, it was we. And when there was struggle and it failed, it was your problem. It was you. You were the issue. That is where you run into issues. And boy, Bo Wallace just went crazy on Twitter. I don't know if did you see old Bo?
Oh yeah, we of course we reached right out to Bo on Saturday night. Hey, we'd love for you to jump on our platform to actually flesh this out a little bit more. Yes. And it's funny you bring this up because I was talking about today. Dunaway was like, does Hugh Freeze hit this head on? And I said, I really don't know how big this has gotten on a national scale. If it gets that big, he's probably going to have to address it. But this might be something just because we're so close to the program we're seeing. But for you to bring it up, I think that kind of shows you that people are running with this thing.
Yeah, and that's a danger that you do run in. And that's where you lose a locker room. And I'm not saying one press conference loses a locker room. You're going to have a whole lot more context on that. And I appreciate, what you guys were saying there at the end of the show and trying to add to some of that. It often gets lost in the heat of all this emotion. It's always just one soundbite that can just infuse everything. I just know that team that I had played for and it was a struggle of a year. It just doesn't go well when it is we when we win and it's you when you lose. It just does not. That's how you lose a locker room. You know what? You keep a locker room afloat. You're all in it together. When we win, we win. When we lose, we lose. It's all of us. You start finger pointing, and it's horrible as teammates to do that when it's an offense versus a defense, when it's older guys versus younger guys. And you do truly run the risk of losing your players, whether they're amateurs, whether they're pros, whether they're semi-pros, whether it's freaking high school. Doesn't matter. You get that like, whoa. I thought we were all in this together. I thought when we were all having success, it was all of us together. But now we have some adversity and you start differentiating and separating yourself and pointing the finger and saying it's your fault. That never, to me, Lance, that just never flies.
And if you're making $7-8 million, I forgot what the number is for Hugh Freeze. You've got to take some accountability, right? That's one of the reasons he gets paid this massive amount of money. He is the front man for the NIL, whatever their collective looks like. And, we heard at SEC Media Days in Dallas, back in July that for whatever reason, Auburn was really building for year 3 under Hugh Freeze. Now, if I'm an Auburn fan, I really don't want to hear that because I think year 2, I think you've got enough of an adjustment period where you can make over a roster in today's college football, especially with the money that Hugh Freeze is making. But boy, I was baffled he didn't get a quarterback in the portal. And then the more we had conversations with Hugh and we had conversations with Peyton Thorne, it seemed like they were really comfortable with one another. Obviously, it's not working out. But if you are a head coach at this level and you do have the resources do you not have to go out and get a quarterback that you believe gives you the best opportunity to win?
You do. I mean, that's what you're seeing all across these schools. You're seeing what Cam Ward is doing there at Miami. You're seeing what Dylan Gabriel's doing at Oregon. The list goes on and on and on. I don't know what the current number is of the Power 4 schools, but it's well over 50, 60, 70%. I think going into the season, it was upper 60% were transfer quarterbacks, and obviously Thorne's a transfer quarterback, right? He transferred from Michigan State down to the Plains. But here's the thing, Lance, it goes both ways. And where Hugh has got to cut this off at the pass, where it's got to be a non-issue, is guess what? When you go in that portal next year, people may not forget this, right? So you've got to make sure, no, this is a QB-friendly system. This is actually where you do want to come play. You do want to come play for me versus, hey, man, the track record has been a little tough. Your quarterbacks do get beat up. They do get hit a lot. Outside of Liberty, there have been some real struggles here. So, these QBs, especially the top tier ones, they don't get drafted. It's the inverse. They get to select. They get to figure out what is the best situation for them, the best fit for their skill set, and maybe a little more player empowerment in that regard than certainly we've ever had in all of college football.
Okay, I'm going to transition to some other quarterbacks around college football, but one final point on Hugh Freeze and Auburn, and I think you'll find this interesting. Through 17 games, Brian Harsin was 9-8. His teams had 20 turnovers. Through 17 games, Hugh Freeze is 8-9 with 34 turnovers in 17 games. Here are his wins: UMass, Samford, Cal on the road last year, Arkansas on the road last year, both, by the way, teams that didn't make bowls, Mississippi State, Vanderbilt, Alabama A&M, and New Mexico. Those are his wins right now. They are sitting at 2-2, Brock. They had one of those weird schedules where first 5 games in Jordan-Hare, they've still got Oklahoma coming to town where they're a slight underdog. Then they've got to go to Georgia, to Missouri, to Kentucky. I mean, there's a chance they lose all 4 of those games, and they're sitting at 2-6.
Mm-hmm. Not good. Yeah, not good. Not good at a time where in college football you can turn these things over, faster. I mean, that loss to Cal. I mean, that is just wow. That has got to be a zinger. Just with your budget, your personnel, what you're paying your guys to do. Right. I mean, this is kind of like the old days of, the huge disparity. Well, not even the old days, the new days of Major League Baseball, where you see $350 million payrolls and $32 million payrolls. And that doesn't always mean you spend the most you're going to win. That's obvious. But this is gut check time, I think, for Hugh, their staff, their program, to really see what they're made of. And he can spin this, by the way. This is now on him. Now that is out there, you're not the victim. That's out there. You said it. Now it's incumbent upon you and your staff and your leaders to bury this thing and somehow use it as a way to bring people closer together than to continue to separate things in that locker room. Outside
of a service academy, I don't think that I have ever seen a team throw for 32 yards and win. And that's exactly what Alex Orji in Michigan did. And, my frustration, I do think the USC defense is much better. But when you finally take the lead and you're up 24-20 and there's 5 minutes left on the clock and they can't throw the football, Deanne Lynn's defense is improved, but you have to find a way to finish off the opponent. And to give up the run they gave up to Mullings, the 63-yarder on third down, and then the 4th down conversion down there to get into the end zone and ultimately win that game, I mean, that's a frustrating loss for USC.
Oh, man. That is a hard flight home. And that's hard tape to watch because they had 3 guys there to make the tackle. I mean, you're there. You're right on him. Right? These coaches all the time say, kill the motor, kill the motor. The motor is those legs. Just don't. What are you trying to do? Tackle high. What are you trying to go for the shoulder? Hang on to his legs and you hold on at all costs. It was just such a fundamental breakdown. It wasn't, this USC team in that defense in particular, Lance, in this Nebraska team as a team, not just one side of it, you see, and it just comes to life in college football so much more than the NFL game. Right? These NFL games we watch, and you talk about the blur of a weekend. On Sunday, it's okay, final 5 minutes. Your Rams, unbelievable win, right? Just final 5 minutes. Just fast forward to the final 5 minutes. The parity, the teams aren't that far apart. There's 46 players. Okay, it really is going to come down to 2 or 3. This college game and just the psychology and almost the I'm not going to call it generational because the last generation of Huskers won national championships and everything else in the 80s and 90s. But this decade of Huskers and like this, last decade of USC defensive players, like there's almost this psychological warfare and psychological hurdle. Like, get over it. What Dabo had to do at Clemson with the whole Clemsoning thing. Like, you've got to get over this. The Cougs call it Cougat up there at Wazoo. Like, you're not going to Cougat. We're not Clemsoning it. And right now, like, if there's two programs and there's probably more you could think of in all of college football, like, come on, SC defense, like, figure it out. Like, get over it. Make that tackle. Kill the motor. Finish the game. Come on, Nebraska. Come on, Dylan, you're right there. You're supposed to be the savior to end this, the Messiah that has risen and resurrected us out of this psychological nightmare we've been in all these one-score games, and you overthrow the guy by 5 yards. These programs just can't, right now that are stuck there, just can't get over that psychological hurdle.
Well, and if I'm a Michigan fan, I'm frustrated because you've known, if you're Sherrone Moore, you knew you didn't have a capable quarterback. Like Davis Warren is a great story, but the guy is not a quarterback that's going to win you a championship. Alex Orji's a tremendous athlete, but he is not a guy that's going to consistently be able to throw the football. And you go from J.J. McCarthy to what they've got right now. Like, I don't know. They can run the football with Mullings and Edwards. They've got a really good defense still. I don't know if that can get you wins with how deep the Big Ten is right now.
Yeah, I think it's a little easier said than done in some of these ways. And I think, and I'll land on Michigan in particular. Michigan has been a developmental program. And that's what Harbaugh did. Like, that's my DNA. This is what I'm like coaches love to say, this is what I'm hanging my hat on. Right? I'm hanging my hat on. I'm majoring in this is who we are. We're going to develop you. They brought in some transfers, sure, but they're largely what? They're largely a high school developmental, kind of what Oregon is, yes, they had about 10 or 11 key transfers and spots, but they believe and will always believe with Dan Lanning and like Kirby Smart and Nick Saban and right, go on and on. Like, we're going to develop from within because that's always the best way to do it. I believe that. Like, just as in the NFL, like free agency and dream teams don't win. Teams that draft and develop and supplement the right way. You look at a Michigan there and you're like, hey man, we've developed you. Davis, you've been there, 9 years? Orji, you've been there, 3-4 years? Like, this is your time, right? We're developed within the culture. We've incubated you. We're ready to go. And you're right. I think in the spring, there were some real warning signs like, whoa. Hold on a second. Like this isn't the way it's supposed to look. JJ was homegrown. JJ was developed. And they're going to be, it's going to be problematic in the passing game, no question about it, but not so easy to just snap your fingers for these developmental programs and say, yeah, let's bring in a free agent. Colorado, pretty easy. Team full of new Louis Vuitton, right? Some of these programs gone down wholesale. This is the way we're going to do it. We're going to bring in all these guys and we're all going to be in it together in that way. But the developmental ones, you got to be right to add the right free agent to the mix.
Brent Venables did make a decision, though, to let Dillon Gabriel go to Oregon based on the fact that we've had this conversation. It was your team for a couple of years, and then Jackson Arnold was taking this team over. Jackson Arnold, and I didn't have a lot of expectation for the team, Brock, just based on the schedule. Their schedule is absolutely brutal. But I thought Jackson Arnold was going to be much better. He just can't protect the football. And they had opportunities against Tennessee, especially with that 1st and goal from the 4, and then immediately turn it over. They get another turnover. They immediately turn it over on the next play. And then in comes Michael Hawkins. I don't know what they do at the quarterback position now, but I am shocked that Jackson Arnold is turning the football over at the rate he is.
I am as well. I think there's a couple factors there, Lance. First of all, having had Oklahoma last year, the way they raved about him was, they loved him.
Yeah, they sold me without me seeing him, Brock. I was like, hey, this kid's going to be really good. How can he not be good?
Correct. But when it comes to that Dillon Gabriel, I think be careful to be like, wow, they just kind of kicked him to the curb, because I think Dillon Gabriel also said, hey, hold on a second. I've started 50 games. I know what I am. I know what I'm not. I know what we have at Oklahoma. I know where they're going to the SEC. I'm a pretty smart guy. I played for Jeff Lebby at UCF. I played for Jeff Lebby at Oklahoma. There was great consistency. I knew that scheme inside and out. I don't know Seth Luttrell. I do know what we have at Oklahoma, and it's not what I have at Oregon. and let me go play in an NFL system. Let me go play and broaden my horizon. So I think there was also a big part of Dylan Gabriel that looked at that and said, "Oh, okay, you want to move on from me or whatever? Oh, you love this young guy? Great. Let me go find somewhere else to play out west that is pretty darn good with a lot of people around me in a system that's going to be made more favorable. And oh, by the way, I don't have to face SEC defenses either."
So let me ask you this. There are some surprise teams I want to get into, and I don't know if I brought it up with you last week.
Signetti, Indiana?
Yeah. And
Yeah.
I started looking at their schedule last week after what they did to UCLA in the Rose Bowl, and I give Deshaun Foster a lot of credit after getting your brains beat in the Rose Bowl to travel across the country and to have a game tied in Tiger Stadium against LSU. I give them credit, at least they were fighting there. But this Indiana team, after destroying UCLA, I started talking about them on the show, and I said, hey, watch their schedule. Like, there is a chance they're undefeated when they go to when they take on Ohio State, and I'm pulling the schedule right now. But Indiana's sitting at 4-0. Curtis Rourke is one of these quarterbacks we talk about, experience out of the MAC.
Yep.
He's not making mistakes. I said it last week. They are great at moving the chains on third down. Now they host Maryland. We'll get a better feel for this team. But then they've got Northwestern, Nebraska, Washington, Michigan State, and Michigan. I mean, it would not blow me away if they win 10 games this year. You?
Do they play Ohio State? I don't think they play Ohio State.
Yeah, they play at Ohio State next to last game, so week 11 of their schedule. But they've got Purdue at home, Michigan at home, at Michigan State, Washington at home, Nebraska at home, on the road against Northwestern, and Maryland at home. They're going to be favored in all of those games except Ohio State, obviously, and I think that's it. I think they're favored the rest of the way out.
Yeah. And if you go 11-1 in the Big Ten, you're not going to make the playoff?
I think you're in.
So,
I don't know. Yeah. I don't know what the wins are that are going to be quality wins. We'll see how this plays out for the other teams.
Yeah.
But if you're 11-1 and your one loss is in Columbus to Ohio State, it's going to be hard for them not to get in.
Yeah, I mean, this guy's done a hell of a job. And I remember him back at Big Ten Media Day, like, whoa, this guy really, like, he's no nonsense. He is a one tough cookie. And he's not one of these fake tough guys with no resume. Like, what he's done and where he has been and where this comes from and what he believes. Like, yeah, and then bringing kind of personnel with him. And then when you're like that, Lance, my life experiences, you typically know the exact kind of kid you're looking for, right? You're not a first-time head coach. You're not trying to figure this thing out. You're like, nope, this is exactly what I want. This is exactly the kind of players we're going to go in the portal and get. And my gosh, are they tough? I mean, they are just an ornery, tough, hardened, brought in some, like Bill Parcells guys, like back against the wall. This isn't like the 5 stars and the 4 stars and all these hype guys. Like, no, bunch of workmen like, yep, we know exactly what we want and we're going to just come at you and we're going to hit you. And their brand of ball here the first month of the season is about appealing and just consuming. And for all these first-time head coaches, what does it look like? What kind of team are we? What kind of identity? And it's the Indiana Hoosiers. Like, they're the ones that have really laid a great foundation this first month of the season.
And much like that in the Big Ten, coach that's been different destinations, and he seems like he's got a certain player he recruits, and that's Brett Bielema in Champaign right now. Illinois sitting at 4-0. They've got 2 one-score wins against top 25s, against Kansas, at Nebraska on Friday night. Now, I do think the Illini schedule is going to end up taking care of them because they've got to go to Penn State this weekend. They've still got to go up to Eugene to take on Oregon. They've got to go to Rutgers. Rutgers is a better team that we'll get to here in a second. But this Illinois team, I mean, to be 4-0 with Luke Altmaier at quarterback, pretty impressive win so far.
Is. Yeah, that win Friday night was real too. And yes, Dylan missed a shot there at the end of it, but you just saw them. Like, I saw Nebraska earlier this year, albeit against UTEP, but we saw they were top 15 defense last year, right? They got a lot of dudes, a ton of experience, and Illinois just punched them right in the face, which is, to your point about Brett Bielema, this is like what we do. And we're going to find guys just as hungry. I mean, this is the advantage of this portal, right? This is this opportunity to level the playing field for why Illinois is 4-0 and why Indiana's 4-0 and why Rutgers is undefeated. Like, it gives these head coaches and I think some of these programs that truly know thyself. Like, this is who we are. This is exactly what I want. Frankly, it was Kalen DeBoer at the University of Washington, Lance, last year, right? He knew exactly the kind of program with Ryan Grubb and the kind of personnel he wanted. It started with Michael Penix, but then it is bringing in a few kind of key pieces. It's developing what is there, and you obviously saw the run they went on. So, yeah, that will be fun for you and I think, over the course of the season, to continue to watch, to see these teams that yeah, maybe preseason polls or preseason media guys had way down in the conference. How did they do this? Why did they do this? What was their process to it? Is they know exactly what they are. They're experienced coaches that know what they're looking for. Here's the one little, as I'm just blabbering at the mouth, here's the one concern I think with all those schools: depth. If you lose an Altmaier, right? If your starter gets banged up at Indiana, like, do you have enough other pieces? I think that is the real challenge versus like the head of the class, the Ohio States, the Georgias, the Bamas, the Tennessee. Like, there's just a redundancy and a lot more depth than I think some of these schools that have started so red hot.
Some of these coaches are just perfect fits with certain programs, and that's Greg Schiano at Rutgers. We saw it, back almost 20 years ago, what he was able to do, getting Rutgers ranked and having special moments on Thursdays and Friday nights in East Piscataway. And it looks like through 3 games, I mean, they've done everything they needed to do to go into Blacksburg and to win that game in Lane Stadium. And they're doing it with a quarterback, and I hate to say this, and this is the shot that I will take because these guys get paid, but I think Minnesota might have the worst quarterback situation with the Brosmer kid in all of the Power 5. I do not think this guy is the fit. The Greek kid that is now transferred from Minnesota to Rutgers, you probably can pronounce his name. He's been really good.
Yep.
He's been really good, though, and I just wonder how, if you're PJ Fleck, you let him get away. But anyway, Rutgers in a good spot right now. I don't know if it holds up based on schedule coming up, but if you're a Rutgers fan, you got to be excited about Schiano and where he's got this program back to.
Yeah, and same thing. Like with Kirk Shiraka there, the OC, like, exactly what you are. You know exactly who you are. Their running back is an absolute difference maker. I think that's been the neat thing in this month of September, and we'll see, if those legs of these studs around the country. I'm going to see one this weekend at UCF. Harvey, been around a long time, but UCF #1 in the country running the ball. Boise State with Genty, that dude is unbelievable. Saw him in the championship game last year. Like, we're seeing some elite running backs, and Rutgers has got one themselves. So, yeah, I guess kind of the theme, every one of these, Lance, feels like we have a theme. We don't go into it thinking that way, but I think today's theme, certainly for college football, is know thyself. And those coaches that do, they have sure established cultures the first quarter to, quarter and a half of this season as they've gone through the month of September. And whether it is Illinois, whether it is Rutgers, whether it is Indiana, some nice stories, whether, Dan Lanning's in year 3, but like, he knew what he wanted to build and what the thing was supposed to look like. And yeah, sure been a neat start to this college football season.
It's Unlocked with Fox's Brock Huard. It's brought to you by MyBookie, mybookie.ag. Football season is here. Winning season is here. They will match that double, or they'll double your initial deposit when you put in that code next round. Just put in the code next round, mybookie.ag. So 2 other coaches that I've had a lot of respect for over the years, and bad last couple of years in Ames, and last year was a disaster year 1 for Kalani Sitake. But BYU and Iowa State both undefeated right now, both ranked. Who do you have more confidence in right now, the Cyclones or the Cougars?
Yeah, probably the Cyclones. I think that thing is a little bit deeper. I think that's a little bit more mature. I mean, BYU put on an absolute show. I don't know if you've ever been to Provo. That is a place.
It looks like an awesome place to watch a game.
It is awesome,
yeah.
And their fans are absolutely rabid. So is Salt Lake with the Utah fans. I think the Mormons sometimes get a label that is incorrect, especially for night games in both of those venues. Salt Lake maybe even a little more than Provo, but they get fired up. They are rabid. They are ferocious. And they're terrific environments to play in. But Matt Campbell knew last year, Lance, we had them a couple times, played Texas pretty tough, played Iowa really tough, ended up losing, I think, both of those games that I called. But in both cases, like, that veteran staff went, yep, best freshman class we've ever had. This is a freshman class that they had last season that rivaled the Breece Hall and Brock Purdy and some real difference makers. Felt like they had dudes across the board, and not just 2 of them, but 10, 12, 15 deep of a freshman class. And you saw that play out last year, and you're seeing even more fruit of it this year. That's going to be nobody's going to enjoy going to Ames. Nobody in that conference, as again level as that conference is, nobody isn't going to enjoy heading up there. Can they take their game on the road in that conference over the course of the season? That, to me, will be the underlying question.
Talk about great atmospheres. It won't be any better than Bryant-Denny Stadium Saturday night, 6:30. Georgia, Alabama, both coming off of byes. Kirby Smart has had a Nick Saban problem, 1-5 against his former boss. And now Kalen DeBoer gets his first shot at Georgia. You can make an argument it's the biggest regular season game to date. Might ultimately be the biggest regular season game in all of college football throughout the season. Alabama is a home underdog for the first time since Nick Saban's first season in 2007, a night game against LSU. 90 straight games they've been favored in. I am not surprised at all. I would have listed Georgia 2.5 point favorite, and they're right now, I think it's sitting at 2, according to mybookie.ag. The good for Alabama is you're undefeated. The bad, I think, for me is the way they beat Wisconsin and Georgia's struggling in Lexington. I think people will look at this game, they'll question, is Georgia really what Georgia has been? And maybe they will inflate what Alabama is. I think Alabama's really good. I think they're a playoff team. Are they as good as Georgia? I don't know. I don't know where Georgia's playmakers are offensively. How do you see this game on a Tuesday playing out Saturday night in Tuscaloosa?
Yeah, I think the two biggest characters on a Tuesday to me in this game are Womack, the D coordinator, and it's Kane Womack, right? The defensive coordinator and your offensive coordinator as well. And I'm looking at him right now. He came from UW.
Nick Sheridan.
Nick Sheridan. Yeah, Womack and Sheridan to me. I think of all the players, the head coaches, the school, the environment, Sheridan and Womack to me are the two biggest characters in this game. I've enjoyed what Kane has done when he was D coordinator there. For a year for Tom Allen, did such an awesome job. South Alabama hired him, head coach, whatever. I think he knew what he was. Like, let me get back to being a coordinator and do that really well. But those two, to me, moving the chess pieces around effectively will be the biggest story come Saturday night, because I think Alabama's got a terrific shot with a head coach that won't flinch, a QB that can make plays, a home venue that is daunting. Those two coordinators, though, over the course of this week, putting their plan together, to me, will be the biggest story Saturday night.
Okay, speaking of Saturday, before we transition to Sunday, before we take our first break here on Unlocked, by the way, with Fox's Brock Huard, I could not believe what I saw in Colorado coming back and winning that game, getting the Hail Mary. I mean, I don't know what the percentages of a Hail Mary are. 1, maybe. But, hey, you got to give Shedeur credit. You got to give Travis Hunter credit, the way he played, the defensive play that he made to end that game. And Colorado's sitting at 3-1. I thought this was going to be a bad Colorado team again. Look, the one team of substance they really have played is Nebraska. They got whacked there. Now they go to the bounce house. You'll be on the call, 2:30 Fox, Central Florida, and Colorado. Does Colorado have enough to go on the road and knock off the Knights?
Well, Vegas doesn't think so. I don't know what line you were looking at. Is it still 14 or so?
I mean, I think it's a bludgeoning, but
yeah,
I don't want to turn people away from your game, but just say it.
Yeah, no, I don't think it'll be a bludgeoning. I don't know how good UCF is defensively, especially on their back end, and those receivers are real. And I know that you characterize it as a Hail Mary. That's fair to do on the final play of the game. But because Travis Hunter is Travis Hunter, he pulled like 3 guys over to one side of the field, and truly it was a one-on-one. It was kind of like the Iron Bowl last year. Like, it was a one-on-one situation, which you never, ever, ever want to get into. In that, it wasn't, to me, that wasn't like the Westbrook touchdown in Michigan 100 years ago, right? Because that was thrown into a pile of people. That was like, Travis Hunter is that good that I'm going to get my buddy on the other side, a one-on-one, and Shedeur made an unbelievable freaking throw to his left, Mahomes-esque, in the rain to throw it 50 yards on a dot and let his guy, Wester, adjust and make that play. So will it be a bludgeoning against the number 1 rush team in the country? It could be. It could be. UCF could go run that ball up and down. Their line is really good. Colorado is really thin in their front. They've got to stop the run and do things they have not done. But those receivers, dude, those dudes are freak shows, like NFL dudes, including this Hunter guy that that is doing things we've never seen in college football. So should be a bunch of fun for us.
The most unpredictable product in all of sports week to week is the NFL. We will jump into week 3 action. We've got 2 more games on this Monday night. He is Fox's Brock Huard. It is Unlocked. It is brought to you by our friends at mybookie.ag. Make sure when you go to mybookie.ag, put in that code next round. They're going to double your initial deposit. Football season is here. Winning season is here. Mybookie.ag. More NFL talk on the other side right here with Fox's Brock Huard on Unlocked.
There's only one Champy's world famous fried chicken. Poor boy's tenders, full fried chicken plates, and a little bit of the Mississippi Delta with chicken on a stick and hot tamales. On your way to or from the big game on Highway 119 in Alabaster, stop by Champy's Chicken. From the creators of The Next Round comes 2 new sites, covercrimson.com and thebarnauburn.com. 2 team sites with the same excitement and information-driven content that you get every day on The Next Round. Live daily shows, recorded shows, free of charge, plus premium content with insider information starting at just $1. And it's the perfect gift for the Alabama or Auburn fan in your family. Covercrimson.com or thebarnauburn.com. Sign up today.
Follow Next Round Live on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube. The social media team at Next Round Live is dedicated to giving you daily news conferences and practice video from UAB, Alabama, Auburn, and around college football. Follow and compare to the sites you used to visit. You'll also get the latest highlights and news from the Next Round Daily Show. Turn on the notifications so you don't miss a thing. Next Round Live on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube. See more at nextroundlive.com.
By now, you guys know how I feel about my fashion. However, did you know that I care about your fashion choices? Cargo shorts are out, flip-flops are only appropriate on the boat, and please throw away that stained t-shirt from college. You may be thinking, EG, that's all I own. What do I do? Here's what you do. Go to nextround.store and fill your cart with a wardrobe that is approved by me. Stock up on logo t-shirts, hoodies for football season, and hats for every day of the week. Trust me on this one and head over to nextround.store to get stocked up for this season.
Hey, there's nothing worse than waking up to a plumbing problem. Don't get caught in a flooded house. Call the guys at Hemp Hill Services. Adam, Chad, and the team at Hemp Hill are the only ones I trust to fix it and fix it right the first time. Hemp Hill Services does it right and always at a fair price. For all of your plumbing, cooling, and heating needs, trust the name that Birmingham has trusted since 1954. That is Hemp Hill Services. Call now, 205-229-2090. That's 205-229-2090.
Just because you've quit going to the gym, it doesn't mean that you have to quit gym altogether. Dunaway, that is. With our Next Round podcasts open 24/7, 365, you can access gym anytime you'd like. While you may have done away with your treadmill routine, our version of Dunaway is standing by ready to get you back to your absolute best. Find all that lovely Jimmy D-led content on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, and in the podcast section of nextroundlive.com. This message is sponsored by Jimmy Crypto Inc. and Jimmy Crypto for President.
From the creators of The Next Round comes 2 new sites, covercrimson.com and thebarnauburn.com. 2 team sites with the same excitement and information-driven content that you get every day on The Next Round. Live daily shows, recorded shows, free of charge, plus premium content with insider information starting at just $1. And it's the perfect gift for the Alabama or Auburn fan in your family. Covercrimson.com or thebarnauburn.com. Sign up today.
You never know what we're up to here at The Next Round. The easiest way to stay in the know with our antics and adventures is to follow The Next Round across all social media platforms at Next Round Live on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok. Whether it's Dunaway sleeping in the studio, Tim and Lunceford breaking down the latest movie release, or Game Day Chronicles, we are here to keep you updated on the latest sports news while, of course, having just a little bit of fun. Follow at Next Round Live across all platforms to join in.
Start your day online with our website, nextroundlive.com, for the latest videos, podcasts, and college football stories. It's also a great way to stream the show or shop in the Next Round store. Stay connected by visiting nextroundlive.com.
I would say, I don't know, I'm just throwing a rough number out there. 80% of our listeners enjoy college football more than the NFL. But there is a product that really just doesn't disappoint. I mean, when you got a team in in Vegas. They roll in. They're down double digits to Baltimore. They win the game on the road. They turn around in their home opener, and Andy Dalton, the journeyman, comes in and wipes them by 2 touchdowns. You've got Tampa Bay, who goes on the road and beats Detroit, and they turn around and they get beat by 19 to a rookie quarterback in Bo Nix, and their offense scores 7 points. I mean, you just don't know what you're going to get week to week in the NFL. Let's start first with Carolina. What does this say? Dave Canales, they made the decision in the front office, we're going to bench Bryce Young, and we're going to bring in Andy Dalton. It gives us the best chance to win. Well, the offense looked good, but what does this say about Bryce Young? Do you think this is a one-off, or I don't know how to explain it.
Yeah, I think what it does tell you is that the scars, and we talked about the old Poison song last week for Bryce, were real. He almost looked like he had the yips at times, certainly compared to what you all saw in Alabama, where he just flourished and ultimately became the number 1 pick. And there's an Andy Dalton that's been around every single corner, right? The Red Rifle has seen just about everything there is to see in the game. Nothing is going to overwhelm him. I even thought last year when he played for Carolina, there were spots that he was really good. He came up to Seattle and took the Seahawks down to the wire almost all by himself. And dude is a capable player, It'd be interesting, it'd be fun, Lance, is to your point about you just never know. What if it was Andy Dalton and not Sam Darnold in Minnesota? I think they'd be 3-0. I think Andy Dalton would be doing everything that Sam Darnold is. Very similar guys. Have seen a lot, experienced a lot, both good athletes, both good arms, both pretty accurate guys. Dalton, I think, has taken care of the ball better over the course of his career than Sam Darnold had. But that's the value of time on task. That's the value of that experience. And to your point, man, the 0-2 Rams beat up everywhere. No Puka Nacua, no Cooper Kupp. Lyman moved her, and you're going to face a salty San Francisco team coming off of a loss. Come on, how are you going to do this? How are you going to find a way to pull a rabbit out of that hat? And that's exactly what McVay and Stafford and those guys do to make them 1-2, the Niners 1-2, and my beloved Seahawks in here at 3-0.
Is there something real about focus? Because I know Kyle Shanahan was telling his team all week, hey, look, this is going to be a desperate, urgent Rams team that is sitting at 0-2. And the Rams looked awful against Arizona in the desert last week. Kyler Murray was that good. And then the Rams go down 14-0. And through the first quarter, the 49ers had 11 first downs. The Rams had none. I mean, they were getting dominated. And I tweeted out, I was like, this game just feels like it's over already. For them to be able to scrap back, much like they did against Detroit, this time they finished the deal. Well, first of all, is there something with lack of concentration with some of these guys in the NFL week to week? And what can this win do for a Rams team that now goes on the road to Chicago to take on Caleb Williams and a Bears team that is sitting at 1-2?
Yeah, did you call that focus? Is that your question?
Because Kyle Shanahan kind of felt it coming. Hey guys, the last thing we want to do, and he said this out loud to his team, is see Matt Stafford with ball in hand with an opportunity to do something. We have got to put foot on throat and kill them. This was Sean McVay's biggest comeback in the history of his career, down 14.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's why I think he was so wired. If you watch post game and the celebration, after that game, and knowing, I would say instead of the word focus, and maybe it's wrapped into this, is just human nature, just the human nature of it. And the difference between college, where you have 80 guys, 85 guys, versus on an active NFL roster, 47, 48, and especially as we get into the season, and I know it is still early. But my goodness, Lance, don't injuries feel like already they're playing a huge role in this league?
It's the only reason. Yeah, I mean, they're the most banged up team. But, I'm doing a little Rams podcast, and I said this before the game yesterday, that, okay, the Rams are the most banged up team, but you can make an argument right now where San Francisco stands. They're right there with them. I mean, when you're missing Christian McCaffrey, who is yet to play in a game this year, you're missing Deebo Samuel, you're missing George Kittle, and then Brandon Ayuk hasn't been the same since missing camp. He just hasn't been. And then you've got, a couple of bad drops for San Francisco. They just got some bad breaks down the stretch, but they are a banged up team as well. And it's just weird that you could have these many injuries, significant injuries, in the month of September going into week 3.
And I don't know how, you're going to play 18 games in this league eventually. I just don't, it just makes no sense to me with this size of roster and this size of guys active on game day. And when you have already expanded the practice squads for a reason and lightened up the practice squad requirements. Back in my day, once you had played 3 years or whatever, you couldn't be on the practice squad. You were past that stage of your career. Not anymore, because they know it's going to take much more personnel, an army of personnel, to try to weather and survive 18 games. And it's going to be about attrition as much as anything else. So I kind of point to human nature. I was saying this on my morning show today, that I think one of the, we talk about these rookie QB contracts and how advantageous it is for these teams because they can load up and be able to pay other players and bring talent in. Lance, kind of like these collectives in college, like, we've got a huge collective that gives us more opportunity to pay all these other guys. I would also say, like, my Seahawks are in a really sweet spot. And we watch this just in the cycle, like the cyclical nature of these contracts and building teams up. And we saw it with your Rams when they went like all in, and we're going to add Stafford, and we're going to add Ramsey, and we're going to go for it, and it paid off with the Super Bowl. And then you're going to have to, come out of that cycle and and have some dead cap, and you better draft well, which they did a season ago or 2 seasons ago. So I think the Seahawks are in a great spot. Like they've got all these young, hungry Ken Walker, Boye Mafe, Devin Witherspoon, Charles Cross, like all these dudes on their rookie deals want to get paid. And we got to prove it. And I'm incentivized to go prove it. I want to get my money. I want to get that next big contract. And, we watched that with the Seahawks in 11 and in 12, and in 13, and Richard Sherman and Cam and Earl and Bobby and all these great young players that were so freaking hungry. And then guess what happened? They got paid. And when you get paid, sometimes you get weird. And then when you get paid, that credit pie and the credit slice becomes really hard to cut and becomes much more challenging. So, I think that human nature element of it, rather than focus, just kind of the human nature, kind of throw all that stuff in together, makes the league, as you said, just one incredible product each and every weekend.
Well, just because you're the last undefeated doesn't mean you're the best. But I do look in the NFC, and there's 2 undefeated teams, the Vikings at 3-0 and the Seahawks at 3-0. I just believe through 3 weeks, the entirety, the complete games, I think those are the 2 best teams in the NFC. Now, Brown tried to argue with me earlier. Is like, man, that Seahawks offense wasn't really good yesterday. And I said, they didn't have to be. Like, I still think Ryan Grubb is holding back. When you get up double digits against Miami with then at that point a third-string quarterback in Tim Boyle, you're not going to be able to win that game on the road. So I don't know how much Grubb was showing. I love, mixing in a guy like DK Metcalf and making sure we're taking 1 or 2 deep shots every single game to that guy. I think Geno is much like the red rifle you talked about. He's a guy that's seen everything. Nothing's going to be too big. He's very comfortable in that system. We can get to Minnesota in a second, but I think those are the 2 best teams in the NFC right now because San Francisco's not whole.
Yeah, San Francisco is kind of in that place the Seahawks were in after you pay all those guys. It's great. It's wonderful to have all this talent on hand, but then it does get a little bit challenging with that just active desperation, right? And just that grit and that incentive is, are you incentivized to absolutely lay your body on the line on every single play? Or are you trying to kind of sustain and let's get to the end of the road and let's get to the playoffs and let's get back to the Super Bowl where they've been a couple different times. So, your issues become a little more problematic. I will say this. I think Detroit's a more complete team. And we'll see Monday night. Seattle's got to go to Detroit because Seattle's interior O-line is really bad. Their guards are really, really below average. And now they're on a 3rd right tackle with Abe Lucas still out. George Fant went on IR. So that is the one area, like their tight ends, check. Running backs, check. Receivers, check. Geno, check. Front, check. Linebackers, check. Secondary, awesome. O-line, a bit problematic. And when you go on the road and you play good teams and see how they would match up even with a Philly or a San Francisco, or that old line is going to give me some gray hairs on this little chinny chin of mine because it's got to get a lot better over the course of the season.
The other team, Minnesota, look, I respect Kevin O'Connell, a guy that learned under the best, and Sean McVay.
Yep.
But Brian Flores has really been the difference. Everybody's going to talk about Sam Darnold and, Aaron Jones acquiring him and Justin Jefferson, arguably the best receiver in all of football. But when you've got a defense that is only allowing 10 points per game through 3 games, they have been lights out dominant. And I think it really starts up front with the defense with Minnesota, and that's the reason they're sitting at 3-0.
Yeah, they're just playing violent, man. You know, that you saw Antonio Pierce, right, after the game yesterday.
Oh yeah,
Talk about the business decisions that his guys are making, and you know that's real. I mean, that's real in the NFL. I got 17 games to play. As I said earlier, I got to try to sustain. You know, am I really going to lay my body on the line? You know, we had Utah and Oklahoma State, Mike Gundy, Kyle Whittingham. You know, two of the toughest badass dudes in all of college football. And Benetti at one point in the game, and I love working with Jason. He is so bright. He's so witty. And at one point in the game, he turned to me and he was like, this is on air. He's like, this is the loudest game on the field I think I've ever called. It was, the level of guys just having no regard for their body. And I don't think I've ever written that on one of my game boards. You know, I think I've shown you my game boards in the past.
Very cluttered.
And very cluttered. Way too much information. It's probably why I talk way too much at times. But the number of players where it was no regard for his body, right? Nick Martin, you know, Trey Rucker, no regard for his body. Utah, the same way. You know, you just go through the list. And then you watch it play out, Lance. And these guys, like, don't stop. You know, it's like these little young kids that you watch where you're like, oh gosh, please slow down. Oh, this is going to be bad. Oh, they're going to fall off the monkey bars. Oh, they're going to, right? Like, oh, this is not going to be good. But they have no governor. Like, they have no regard. They have no fear.
I think something weird has happened audio-wise. I think it's on our side because I'm hearing a loud echo here. Maybe not. Did you mute yourself? I don't see your sure mic is not lit up or lighting up, so maybe it came unplugged. Yeah. As you try to figure that out. There you go. You're back.
Yeah, you know, the stupid microphone, you know, that technology isn't always my friend. But I remember watching the Niners last year and thinking, oh my gosh, these dudes are so violent. They're so violent. And just like, and I remember watching the Seahawks again in 12 and 13 and 14, Lance. Same thing. They were so violent. And you would see guys on offense like, I got to find some place to fall. I don't want to be hit by Cam Chancellor. I don't want to be hit by Bobby Wagner. Right. And I think over the course, especially with 17 games, and I'll say it again, if this league goes to 18, how you construct a team that has guys defensively that will truly have no regard for their body, no regard for their contract, no regard for any of that, and absolutely want to just lay it on the line and knock people out. I think those are the teams over the course of time that are going to win more games than not. Can they sustain? Can they do it for year after year after year? I don't know. They got to expand these rosters. I do know that.
And one of those teams resides in the AFC, and watching them yesterday, like, we didn't know what was going to happen at the quarterback position with Russell Wilson, and Justin Fields obviously takes over there. Yep. And they're sitting at 3-0, but it's all about that defense. And you're talking about a violent defense. And look, you played in this league. When your defense is holding opponents to 8.5 points per game through 3 games, that is a lights-out defense. It starts with T.J. Watt, but watching them yesterday against a backup quarterback in the Chargers, they had no chance once they got down in that game. And how good is the Steelers' defense? Can they sustain with a guy like Justin Fields at quarterback?
Don't you feel like Justin's coming a little bit?
Yeah, though? I do. I thought he gave him the better option of winning. I would have gone Justin the entire time. Easy to say now, but I said that before.
Yes. And I think his legs play a part of that. And just, you know, hopefully for his career, this is a place where, man, I found the right OC that believes in me, the right head coach that believes in me, you know, a locker room that will start to play to my strengths and what I'm capable of doing. It is interesting, Lance. So when we were at our Fox seminar, it was really cool. Every year, you know, we go there. The NFL guys are on the front end, college guys are on the back end, and then we have one night together. And it's really fun to just fraternize with all the guys in the NFL and vice versa. And they bring in like a great speaker, you know, Roger Goodell. This year, Andy Reid popped on, and they were in day one of training camp. And there's Andy Reid, and we had him on a Zoom on the big screen, everything else. And he's like in a dorm in Missouri. And he believes, this old school Andy Reid still believes in the value of getting away and making training camp really hard. And Mahomes has talked about this, and Kelsey has talked about this, and that callousing of your body and the toughness mentally and physically, like they go away. And you know who else does? The Pittsburgh Steelers. And they go out to Latrobe, Pennsylvania, and in the heat, in the humidity, and all the crap that they got to deal with. But Mike Tomlin and Andy Reid, guess what they are? Long tenured. And guess what they won't go away from? Making camp hard and building your team up that way, physically and mentally, in a league that's gotten away from a lot of that. And guess what both those teams did? Play their starters in the preseason. We're going to rest our guys the whole camp. What are you talking about? We got to get ready to play football. The only way you get ready to play football is to play football. So there's Mahomes playing in the preseason and Kelsey playing in the preseason and starters playing in the preseason on both of those teams. Is it a surprise they're out the gate 3-0? Will this start to change maybe some of the opinion of other organizations and other teams? Like, maybe we have gotten a little soft. Maybe there is still something to that old school running, hitting, and doing it out in a really uncomfortable environment in training camp.
Okay, so last night, and since you brought up Kansas City, it is a team that is sitting at 3-0. They could easily be 0-3. If Isaiah Likely's got a smaller toe, if Cincinnati makes one more play, and then last night...
One call here, one call there.
If Zach Robinson maybe goes back to Algier, maybe, between the tackles instead of running wide on fourth down. But let's go back to the next to last possession, 3rd and goal. Cousins goes over the middle to Kyle Pitts. He gets completely demolished. I would just ask you this, and I'm not saying conspiracy theory here. There are a lot of people, if you look at the X and the Twitter, that swear Kansas City gets these calls purposely. But if that game is in Arrowhead, and that is Mahomes going to Travis Kelce, and it's the same contact, there is no way it's not flagged.
Yeah, probably. And you know what? That's what you get when you earn the benefit of the doubt. Why Greg Maddux get every call in the corner?
That's a fair point, too.
Because he's earned that right.
Yeah.
You've earned that right over time. You've done it over time. You've proven it over time. And yeah, I'm sorry you don't like why did Michael Jordan get those calls or Kobe get those calls or my guy didn't get that call. Well, you got to earn it. Go win some Super Bowls. Go put some pelts on the wall. Go do it organizationally with the stability that they have done it. And then you can try to, gripe and complain. And you can say, well, again, that's not fair. That's just going to lead to more success. Well, go take it from them. Go take it from them. Go finish it. When you do have a 4th and 1, go finish it. And instead of getting stopped. And I would say it. And I think Collinsworth said it last night with Spagnuolo and the Chiefs. Man, they're violent, right? You go watch those dudes hit. Go watch that linebacker who goes and finishes that play on 4th and 1 and absolutely lays his body on the line and pulls the trigger. So, yeah, stars are all on offense. But last year they won that Super Bowl because of their defense, and they're 3-0 in big spots because their defense has come up and delivered.
Okay, before we get out of here, are the Cowboys broken? They have given up basically 30 points per game. They're sitting at 1-2. Very impressive, complete performance in Cleveland week 1. Since then, they get walked off the field at home against both the Saints and the Ravens. I know it was a 3-point game yesterday, but if you watched it, it did not play out like a 3-point game. They've got what is viewed as maybe a gimme this weekend when they go to New York to take on the Giants. The Giants are coming off a win, but then they got to go to Pittsburgh. They've got Detroit. They've got to go to San Fran, to Atlanta, the Eagles, and the Texans. That is the stretch coming up right now for the 1-2 Cowboys. Are they broken? Can they get this fixed?
Well, defensively, they seem to be a bit of a mess. I would have some confidence in their offense, maybe a little bit more than their defense. Well, they too have gone through huge dry spells, and to your point, dug themselves such a hole that even with a heroic effort could not come all the way back. I watched the Seahawks change pretty dramatically. I talked to you earlier about, getting paid and incentive and all that stuff, but it changed pretty dramatically when Dan Quinn walked out the door. There was a real X's and O's drain, and Chris Richard to Clint Hurts to Ken Norton in between, it just never was right. Now, Mike Zimmer has done it, and Mike Zimmer, I think, is a really good coach. But he's also one that when adversity comes and hits, he could be pretty hard to deal with, with some of the personnel around him. So, yeah, that defense has not looked very, very intimidating.
Does Zimmer,
to put it nicely,
does he dip more than any coach you know?
Dan Campbell. I mean, those two would have a pretty big dip off. And I'll say this, who was the old Ohio State DN, went in the top 5, kind of got banged up in his career, Chase Young? Chase Young. walked into our meeting, and my producer's a dipper. And the hockey puck that Chase Young put in college in his mouth and had caught outside and still being able to talk. We finished, and my producer's like, that's one of the most impressive dips I've ever seen in my life.
Oh, wow.
There you go.
It is Unlocked. We do it every week with Fox's Brock Huard. It is brought to you by our friends at mybookie.ag. Very important when you go to mybookie.ag, when you sign up, they are going to double your initial deposit. Very simple. All you've got to do is put in that code next round. Next round, they will double your initial deposit from our friends at mybookie.ag. Enjoy the bounce house, Orlando. Are you taking the entire family? You doing the Disney thing?
No, my family's all grown up. Tide's playing football. No. I've been. That place gets rocking, man. It's gonna be a cool environment. It's gonna be hot though. Gosh, it was hot in Stillwater. Lance, I'm getting old.
I don't like the heat.
I don't like the
either.
heat, man.
Yeah, I'm right there with you.
The heat. Give me the cool. Just the sticky, sweaty, nasty. Ugh, not a fan of it, but it should be some theatrics, and old Dion brings a few eyeballs or two.
We will be watching. Well. That is obviously the Fox game, 2:30 Central Time kick, Colorado, UCF. We'll see what happens there. Great stuff as always. Like, subscribe, share, and it's always brought to you by, again, our friends at mybookie.ag. Have an incredible week, Brock. We will talk to you next week right here on Unlocked.
See you, buddy.